Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Ural Mountain Mystery Part 3. Today we're going to be talking about the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Rustem Slobodin would be the next body found a week later after finding the bodies of Igor Dyatlov and Zerneda Komagora, and he would be found on March the 5th, 1959. This is due in part when the rescue team arrived at the Ural Mountains, they would have a lot of difficulty finding the bodies and recovering evidence, as most of the snow had covered not just the body but the equipment and anything leaking to the hiking team that went missing. One of the rescue team would actually comment and say that most of the time they were trekking through up to knee and waist high in the snow, and the only way of trying to find anything is by taking a metal rod and poking it into the ground. Some other team people from the rescue team would bring metal detectors to try to find the group, but they would not have much luck with the detectors as most of the equipment was left at the tent, so it was like finding a needle in a haystack. One of the rescue team members would actually comment and say that a lot of times you would have to just poke these metal rods through the snow, and sometimes you would feel something hard, and thinking that it would be one of the body of the team members, everyone would rush over and begin digging with all their strength, only to find out that it was either a tree trunk or a rock or something of that nature. But on March 5th, 1959, they would have some luck and they would find Rustem Slobodin. He would actually be found between the bodies of Igor Dyatlov and Zerneda Komagora. What makes his story more unique is the fact that he was considered one of the strongest members in the group, and he would be found between Igor and Zerneda, and from the way his body was positioned, it would almost seem as if he just gave up and laid in the snow and just never got up to try to survive. And just like the others, Rustem would have a watch, and his watch would actually go dead at 8:45 in the morning. The rescue team would also notice that he had a purplish-reddish color. And just like the others, the cause of death would be determined hypothermia. The remaining 4 members would actually be found by a stream, and the rescue team would also notice that these 4 would actually go by this stream and try to convert this area into a makeshift den to protect themselves from the shelter. And they would begin digging a hole in the snow and actually surround that area with branches and wood enclosed to try to protect themselves from the storm. Ludmila Dubuina would actually be found positioned on a rock or near a rock on her hands and knees. Her body would be just like the rest, a purplish reddish color, but Ludmila would also have a greenish tint to her skin, as her body was visibly decaying in the stream. She would also have bruisings on her body and a severe chest wound on her chest. The coroner report would show that she was hit with such force it would be the same as if she was hit by a car. She would also have both of her eyes and her tongue removed, and chunks of flesh was removed from her face. She would also be wearing a brown sweater, and the rescue team would also find that her sweater would test positive for radiation. Her cause of death or determination of her death would be the only different one in this group, and it would be determined that her cause of death was hemorrhaging due to a chest wound. Semen Zalatorov would actually be the next one found, and it would seem the way the bodies were positioned that Semen would die protecting or shielding Alexander Koatlov. Semen would be found trying to cover Alexander, and he would have blunt force traumas all throughout his body, especially his head and face. They would also notice that his neck was completely crushed. Alexander would have similar injuries as Seaman, but minus the neck crushing. Seaman would also have both of his eyes removed, and both Seaman and Alexander would have a purplish, reddish, greenish color, as I said before, because they were so close to the stream, their body had became decaying more. And on top of that, they would also find radiation on both of their clothing. They would also find extreme trauma not only to their face and chest and neck, but their arms as well. And surprisingly, the determination of death of Seaman and Alexander would surprisingly be hypothermia. Lead investigator of the search party, Lev Ivanev, would actually write up all of their findings, and he would take everything that the search team had found and write a 4-page letter explaining what had happened to the team. But what was even more confusing was the explanation that Lev would give explaining what exactly happened to the Dyatlov hiking team. And in his 4-page paper, he would explain in his words that the hikers encountered an overwhelming force that they were not able to overcome. And with good reason, that most people from the rescue team's family and friends were rightfully frustrated, as this statement really didn't give any answers that they were looking for. And this explanation, or explaining away what had happened to the team, would give way for a lot of theories of what had actually happened. And I'm just going to warn you right now that some of these explanations they would come up with would be completely mind-blowing. I think it's only fair that we start off with the craziest of theories that people would come up with. One being an alien encounter, and alien as in alien from outer space. And also another theory that the group had ran into a cryptid, or an animal known as the Yeti. The reasons behind both of these theories would be that, as I said before, the only thing we really know what happened to the team is what was left behind from photographs and the diaries that the team would be writing on a nightly basis. And on one of the cameras, they would actually find a few photographs of strange lights in the sky. Aside from a couple photographs found of strange lights in the sky, nothing would be found in the diaries about an alien encounter. But this would just be one of many theories that people would come up with. Earlier, I just mentioned another crazy theory was the team would run into and be completely mauled by a cryptid known as the Yeti. Or as most people here in America would like to refer to it, Bigfoot. And the main reason behind this theory would be, once again, like the lights in the sky, they would find a picture of a very strange figure poking around the trees as is depicted here. And many people would theorize that they finally got a picture of a Yeti. But this would actually be debunked very quickly, as they would realize it was probably someone from the group just standing very awkwardly. And even though most tall tales of the Yeti don't really talk about ripping off flesh and eating tongues and eyes, only a few members of the team would actually have their eyes and tongue removed. So it really made no sense. If it was being mauled by a Yeti, why wasn't everyone else in the group mauled as well? So it was determined very quickly that it was impossible that the group was actually attacked by a Yeti or aliens. But it did not stop them with coming up with even crazier theories.